Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. Today in Climate Conversations, we're talking with Dr. Ian Clark, who is a professor of geology at the University of Ottawa in Earth and Environmental Sciences. Dr. Clark, thank you for joining us today. Now, we were talking earlier about the carbon cycle, and you were saying how difficult it is for people to really grasp what that's all about. Could you explain a bit of that to us?
Yes, sure. Well, certainly everybody knows that we've got CO2 or carbon in the atmosphere, and this is warming our planet. But the CO2 in the atmosphere is just one component of a much larger carbon cycle. And if we look at the active carbon cycle, and we can study that a number of ways, but one is with radiocarbon because it's produced in the atmosphere, and so anything that is actively cycling carbon will have radiocarbon. We can trace it. And the atmospheric CO2 is taken up by plants, biomass, degradation in soils, exchange with the oceans, and these are all the active carbon reservoirs, if you will. What people don't recognize is that the atmospheric CO2 that is being modified, we're putting CO2 in the air, but it's a small component of all the exchanges that are going on. So the atmospheric CO2 reservoir exchanges with the broader biosphere about every 4 years, 4 to 5 years.
So the carbon cycle actually is naturally evolving. There's a give and take, if you like. There's a common cycle that goes on.
So when we talk about putting CO2 into the air, our anthropogenic CO2, what people don't understand is it is mixing with a much larger reservoir, about 5 times larger than just what's going on in the atmosphere. And these cycles operate on, as I say, 4 to 5 years, decades.
And you're saying that our part, the human-caused part of the carbon cycle, is very small proportionately?
So when we talk about putting CO2 in the air and we've got to stop that, we've got to think about what's controlling the actual concentrations of CO2 in the air, and it's not just what we're putting in there. That's going into a much larger system with these very rapid exchanges, and what's controlling those exchanges is the sun, temperature, and water.
So carbon dioxide from human emissions is not the main driver then?
So the CO2 cycle between the atmosphere, the biomass, the ocean surfaces, is really being controlled by these exchanges, which are driven by temperature and by the water cycle. So it's a huge system. We're adding a small component to it, but if we were to stop adding CO2 to the atmosphere, the concentrations in the atmosphere are going to remain in an equilibrium with this larger biosphere. And at the end of the day, whatever happens with temperature, and over the last 100 years we've seen an increase in temperature, that's controlling the concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark, and we will see you again on Climate Conversations. For Friends of Science, I'm Michelle Sterling.